Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Neil Villapiano, and welcome back to another episode of this blog. We have a lot in the world of sports to get to today, so without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing today we're going to talk about is this past MLB All Star Weekend. Obviously, we had the Futures game, the Home Run Derby, and the big game, the All Star game. First thing we're going to talk about is the Home Run Derby, and it was an incredible Home Run Derby. Giancarlo Stanton of the Miami Marlins finished with a total of 61 home runs through all three rounds, and he defeated last year's champion Todd Frazier of the Chicago White Sox in the final round. And I gotta say, watching some of those highlights, because unfortunately I wasn't able to watch it live, I was just amazed by how impressive Giancarlo Stanton was swinging the bat. He said that he only used 70 to about 80% of his normal swing. Obviously, I think he used a little bit more than that, but still, it was incredible to watch. And I think that the Home Run Derby, in my opinion, is a little bit more entertaining than the actual All-Star game itself. You guys can comment in the comments below if you guys disagree or agree with my statement. Now let's talk about the All-Star game. The American League was able to top the National League 4-2. The winning pitcher was Cleveland Indians right-hander Corey Kluber. The losing pitcher was the starter for the National League, Johnny Cueto of the San Francisco Giants. Zach Britton, of the pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, got the save. Obviously, in the first couple innings, if you watched it, the game was pretty entertaining. Cubs All-Star third baseman Chris Bryant hit a home run on his first pitch in his first All-Star game. Very impressive. And we also had a couple home runs from the defending world champion Kansas City Royals, with Salvador Perez, their catcher, and the eventual most valuable player of this year's All-Star game, Eric Hosmer. But I want to say, unfortunately, in the last 4 or 5 innings, it just got really boring, obviously with a lot of dominant pitching by the American League, even though they left a bunch of runners on base, and the National League could have easily scored a bunch of runs and won the game. But I just feel like at times that it was just very, very boring. I got kind of tired after a couple innings watching the game, especially with all the starters out of the game. And another thing that bugged me is that I would have liked to have seen David Ortiz, knowing that it's his last All-Star game. I would have liked to see him get a little bit more praise, just like with Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter earlier in the past couple of years when they got honored in their last All-Star game. I just feel like that David Ortiz should have had a little bit more time playing in the game. I would have loved to have seen him at least get a hit, maybe not a home run, but at least a hit. And I just feel that everything was just kind of boring in my opinion. And I also believe that I don't feel like the All-Star game should base and determine who gets home field advantage in the World Series. I think it should go off record, as a lot of these ball players who are playing right now agree with. Sticking with baseball, we actually have a trade that happened yesterday. The Red Sox traded away their top prospect right-handed pitcher Anderson Espinoza in exchange for all-star left-handed pitcher Drew Pomeranz from the San Diego Padres. I just saw Pomeranz pitch in the All-Star game, and I just find it incredible that his last game as a Padre is in the All-Star game. And just talking to my dad seems to really like Pomeranz. I don't know much about him, but all I know is that the Red Sox feel confident that they're getting some more depth in their pitching staff that can hopefully carry them into the postseason. All right, so the next sport we're going to talk about is the NBA, and to help me with that segment, we have my older brother, Jeff. What's going on, Jeff?
It's good. It's good, yo.
So we're going to talk about two things. First thing we're going to talk about is Tim Duncan retiring after 19 years. Pretty incredible career, winning a couple championships and being loyal to the Spurs, staying there his entire career. Jeff, your thoughts on that?
I don't know. Personally, I think he could have stayed a couple more years. Obviously, make a little bit more money, but to an extent, I feel him on it because, I think he figured out that if you look at the recent history of the Spurs, on average, they probably win only every 5 or 6 years as far as a ring goes.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice, to be able to say, oh, I have as many rings as Jordan. I have more rings than the likes of Kobe. Even Magic. I think Magic only had 5, right?
Yeah,
you might have to fact check me on that, or in the comments you might have to fact check me on that. But basically, like I said, I feel him on that because he said himself, it just didn't be. It became not fun anymore. It became, basically what I got out of it is that it became more of a job than as you know something he was really about. More less of a passion and more of a job.
Hmm.
And I get it. You get old, your body gets old, it becomes more taxing. And he's not an idiot. He doesn't blow his money like AI. He's not broke. He's not stupid. So I mean, he's probably not a money problem. He doesn't need the money. So I get it. And I'm pretty sure he's got kids too. Anyway, he has some kind of family situation, so he's probably focusing on that now. So I get it, yo. Love goes out to Tim Duncan, man. You're a great player. You had a legendary career. You were the king of the bank shot. I've never seen anybody, you know, as tall as he was, as much of a big man as he was. Man, he would prefer the bank over the dunk as far as like an inside move. But he was like the king of the bank. That's what we got to call him.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he was pretty incredible with the bank shot. Do you believe at all that his decision to retire had anything to do with maybe Kevin Durant signing with the Warriors and making it that much more of a challenge for him to continue to play and try to win a championship one more time?
Nah, I mean, nah, I don't think so. Because even like I said, you think about the recent history before this Durant trade ever even, was considered, let alone before it even happened. But you know, I mean, like I said, I think I don't know that I haven't done the math, but I think like every 4 or 5 years they win a ring. So you know, I mean, obviously they won one in 2014, so that was 2 years ago. But you know, I give them maybe depending on whether Parker and Ginobili retire as well, and whether they keep Kawhi, whether he wants more money, they match him, whatever. Um, I'll give him maybe like 2020, 2021 is the next time we're going to win a ring. And you think about him, he's an old ass man. Like I get it. Like he probably doesn't want to wait around until 2021. I mean, Jesus will be elected by that point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Yeezus 2020.
He's really into this into Yeezus.
No, I'm playing. I like his music, but he's a wacko.
Yeah, you guys can comment about that too if you want in the comments below, and I can't wait to see what people have to say about that. My last question to you, and this is not necessarily about Tim Duncan; it's more about the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
What are your reactions to? What was your first reaction? Let me say your first reaction to Kevin Durant deciding to sign with the Golden State Warriors of all teams, with the "I guess you can't beat him, join him" type quote.
Sellout. That's the only way to explain it. I don't care about the finance. I don't care about you can tell me all manner of complex shit about the salary cap, making more, whatever. I don't even remember the money situation. I didn't pay attention to it because when I first saw the idea was first presented to me on SportsCenter when Durant was still in the middle of deciding what he was going to do for this next year, what team he was going to go to. And when I first saw it, I was on the couch, like right behind me, in this couch in this room behind me. I jumped up off the couch and I said, "You kidding me, man? He's a sellout." I put it right on Snapchat. I said, "Even consider," and then I roasted him on Facebook because I said,
I saw that.
I said, you know, how could you? First of all, how could you do your city like that? You know, how could you do Westbrook like that? And first of all, how could you do your own legacy like that? How could you be the one who said, in a very similar fashion, in a fashion very similar to LeBron, be this established star in a city, go to a team where it's guaranteed if you stay there for even 4 or 5 years, just like LeBron did, you're guaranteed at that level of talent relative to the rest of the NBA, win at least one ring. And then, for all we know, he might come back, and try to become the golden boy in Oklahoma again. I don't care, what people say. Oh, LeBron's different because he's from Akron, Ohio. That's what I'm saying. Fuck that, because that's an added bonus, especially now he's a golden boy in the state of Ohio and particularly in Cleveland because now he won a ring, and that obviously that's added. That's different. But at the same time, Durant went to UT, so it's not like he was even before he went to the NBA. He wasn't he wasn't already established in that immediate area in the Southwest. Like, you know, I mean, as far as where he could go, as far as keeping that same general fan base that he had in college. I mean, his choices where he could have gone to the Mavs, maybe the Spurs, but even still, because obviously those are in the state of Texas, but Oklahoma's, right next door as far as states go. So, I mean, to an extent, even that is the same thing because, but anyway, I don't, that's the thing about LeBron, his being from Cleveland, I'm sorry, his being from Akron, his being from the state of Ohio, that's just an added thing. But the two are identical at a core level in that, he was an established star, and we got to be honest, as far as winning the ring, he had the Warriors. The Thunder had the Warriors on the ropes. They blew it at home. All they had to do was close at home, and they blew it.
Up 3-1, you should be able to close it out.
No way to put it. They blew it.
Yeah.
So how could you tell me that it makes sense to join a team that you couldn't beat? I mean, to say that you couldn't beat them is just untrue. You didn't beat them, but that's because you performed so poorly when you had them on the ropes. I mean, granted, if I'm not mistaken, largely the reason that the Thunder were able to take a 3-1 lead is because the Warriors. I got to check the stats, but I'm pretty sure the Warriors weren't hitting their threes, and that's really that's the essence of their offense, of their whole team. In fact,
that's what killed them in the finals.
So all they do is they swing it around the arc, and whoever's open, they just wait for somebody to catch a defender off balance. They wait for even a semi-open shot sometimes, or even on fast breaks. So they won't drive the lane. A lot of times they'll just stay beyond the arc and they'll shoot a three.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, I'm just saying it is what it is because, the Warriors don't hit threes, then it's much easier to beat them. But at the same time, it is what it is. Like, the fact of the matter is they were not hitting. So, and the even more important fact of the matter is you had them down 3-1, going back to Oklahoma City. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing from the main point.
No,
but
it's fine. It's fine.
All I'm saying is, I don't care about the money. That's just a sellout because there's a difference between having help and being stacked.
Right.
Okay, you think about the Bulls right now. Like, Wade is teamed up with Rondo. Like, that's as far as I would go as far as the line between help and being stacked, because those are two pretty established stars. Albeit Rondo hasn't since he's left Boston, he hasn't really done anything too spectacular. And of course he gained the majority of his fame when he was on that, especially that 2008 Celtics team. But just in general, that Celtics team when he was paired up with the likes of Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, say nothing to Ray Allen, things of that nature. But what I'm saying is, for Wade, that's help. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has somebody to lean on. But when you talk about a team like the Warriors, even before Durant was in the picture, they're so stacked. The same thing with Cleveland. They're so stacked to the point where already established stars become role players. Because respectively, LeBron and Steph, they're the stars of their teams respectively, and that. But the whole point is, Andre Iguodala, he was his own person in Philly,
right?
And then Andrew Bogut was his own person in
Milwaukee.
And then of course you add Klay Thompson, who crazy 3-point shooter. He's half of the Splash Bros, and then you get a star in Draymond Green. You had all that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's completely stacked. Like, another adding Kevin Garnett. Like, I saw this
Kevin
meme.
Durant.
I'm sorry, Kevin Durant.
Don't worry about it.
I saw a meme. It said it showed the picture of the main crew of the Warriors now with now that they got Durant, and the caption said, "If you play with this team in 2K, I'm kicking you out of my house." And it's kind of true because, whether it be 2K or whether it be real life, I mean, the probability that they're not going to win the title is extremely small. And that, it's just ridiculous because, you know, this is going to get into my next point, and he's going to bring it up just a second about stacked teams and so forth. But, he used to sell it. That's the only way to put it. Like when we look back on his legacy, we really got to consider that, in the same way that LeBron basically said, well, screw it. I haven't won a title in Cleveland. I'm just going to pair up with, Wade and Bosh, to say nothing of others.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that was the big three,
right?
That was there. But what I'm saying is, the same when he did that, and stayed there for a couple of years, and I still think it's pathetic they only won 2 out of 4. But anyway, the whole point was it's the same thing. Like the probability that they weren't going to win the title when you pair up LeBron with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, that shit was just crazy. Like that I thought was ridiculous. Now I feel like we're in a new era of just like.
Is this more ridiculous to you?
The league has figured out basically that, stacked teams are the way to go. It's the trademark. I might be ignorant. I might be out of place here. I'm gonna know all my history, but to me, it seems like, it was one thing. When you had rivals, like, when you thought of Wilt, you thought of Bill Russell. When you thought of Magic, you thought of Bird, stuff like that. But the thing is, now, to me, it's more of like, it's not really about, one, maybe 2 stars on one team. Now it's about, as if 3 stars were bad enough on the Celtics of 2008, or, what happened in Miami for 4 years, a couple years ago. Now it's like 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's so bad that stars in their own right at other teams in other cities are all coming together, and they're being enveloped by this one big team, and the Cavs and the Warriors, those were the 2 big guns. Everybody knew that most probably, even before the playoffs started, that those 2 teams were going to go at it for the title this year. I mean, nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody expected the Thunder to get that close to beating the Warriors. And for that matter, when you really think about it, who's gonna compete? Who's gonna give the Cavs a run for their money in the East? So, but now, it's kind of, that same thing has happened, but with more teams now. There's this talent concentration in a select few teams. As opposed to being a duopoly, it's more of an oligarchy in terms of a handful of teams. The Knicks just did it. They copped a bunch of very talented players. Like I said, the Bulls did it, but the Bulls are like, that's where I draw the line as far as like health for Wade versus like it being stacked, like I mentioned before. But Warriors are ridiculous now. Obviously, the Cavs are still crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, my point is, and I'm going to get into this. I actually have an idea as far as counteracting this, so that
was the next question I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that right now, but that just that'll help me transition to my next point about how teams, how the league can counteract that issue of stacked teams.
All right, so that brings me into my next question. Since you're one of the many people who are into sports, and especially in the NBA, and have a problem with these guys jumping to stacked teams and not build and weakening more teams, is there any way that the NBA can maybe solve this? Because I just saw something where Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was just saying that he doesn't like these so-called super teams. He doesn't like it at all.
Right.
And, I've wondered, well, he's the commissioner of the NBA. Why can't he just not allow these things to happen? Why is it so difficult? So I want You were talking to me before about some idea you had, so I'd like you to share it with the world and see what they think.
Well, first of all, in order to begin to answer your question, Neil, um, I just want to say, first of all, disclaimer, that what I'm going to be talking about is theory, because obviously in reality things get complicated. Adam Silver can say, well, I hate super teams, and, he could try to figure out all kinds of ways, devise all different kinds of things. Um, so that these things don't happen. But the reality is there's probably things like lobbying and because the NBA isn't just isolated. There's networks involved. There's all kinds of money anywhere. Adidas. That there's Nike. There's clothing lines. There's shoe lines. There's network deals.
Mm-hmm.
There's money there. So a lot of them, especially the networks, I'd say that they probably argue. And that means if they argue in favor of things like stacked teams and it's in their interest, they're probably going to lobby the NBA in whatever way. So, but basically, what I'm saying is, this is theory, so take it as it is. But basically, to begin to answer your question, we need to talk about the basic concept behind the salary cap
Mm-hmm.
and how it, in its own way, in its own regard, theoretically attempts to prevent super teams or even any number of very stacked teams from existing. And so the main assumption behind the salary cap is that players of a certain talent level and of a certain caliber, especially the elite of the elites, the creme de la creme of the league, they're used to a certain amount of money, especially after a while, per year. Obviously LeBron's going to make way more than some bench player on some podunk team that isn't really a marquee team or whatever. Doesn't get any time. He even makes a lot more money than players on his team that ride the bench. Obviously, these things are obvious. But the reason that I mention it is that the idea is that with a salary cap, the idea is, oh well, you can't have too many stacked players, assuming that so many players will want to stick to a certain amount of money or a certain range of money,
Mm-hmm.
and so when you add it all up, any one team is not going to be able to afford it because there's just a limit on how much they can spend on talent and on players. But the problem is what the salary cap and what that assumption doesn't account for is the fact that any player, and obviously LeBron did it, I'm sure. But anyway, the problem that assumption doesn't account for is that any great player or any all-star can just take a pay cut. They can just say, hey, I've been making so much money for this amount of years, so many years, but granted, everybody's riding me because I haven't won the big one. Maybe we've made the playoffs, maybe we really haven't. Even though I'm dropping 40 a game, or I had a bunch of triple doubles this past year, things of that nature. And so I say, screw it, I'll take a pay cut. Melo did it. Mel took a pay cut to get all kinds of talent surrounded by him. So what I'm saying, the problem is, or actually rather the solution to that problem is, preventing any number of players from taking a certain pay cut is, what if they reached a certain pay grade or they reached a certain range of money, they couldn't make any less. Either that or they had to go into free agency, because if there's a rule or a restriction that says, hey, you've already made this amount of money, so you can't make any less than it, or you can only make so much less than it,
Mm-hmm.
so that the Durants of the world win a ring or two, nobody can say no, you never won the big one, and then just go back to my original city, like LeBron did, like I expect Durant to do.
I don't think so.
and become the. I mean, we don't know, but definitely with LeBron. I mean, we know that happened.
Right.
It definitely happened.
Right.
So,
right.
definitely like LeBron. You could say, I'll just go back to my city and be the golden boy.
You think that would happen if, like, this is kind of random? Do you think it would happen if, like, per se, Melo went back to the Nuggets? Or do you think he'll just probably stay the rest of his
Well, I
career?
mean, I don't think the Knicks have a good chance of winning the title at all. So
You don't
that's not
think
the best example.
even with the team that they've established?
No. I mean, that's a different issue. I mean, we can get into that later.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, so the whole thing is, you keep on one end you keep the salary cap as it is in the sense that you can only afford so much money, but at the same time, if a player makes a certain amount of money, be it for a certain number of years, because you might be able to say, oh, well, 1 year, that's not enough to justify, that this player is truly elite. But the thing is, on the other hand, you have the idea that if you make once you make that certain amount of money, you can't make, like I said, you can't make either any less than that or a certain amount less than that, so that you can take those crazy pay cuts, so that you can't have a crazy amount of talent surrounded by you. And that if you combine those two, then you'll trap players in the sense of say, well, geez, man, maybe if I play my cards right, if I lobby the front office of this organization that I happen to be playing for, that I want to play for, that I'm in negotiations with, I'll say, if I play my cards right as far as that goes, maybe I could get like one or two other stars with me, because that's reasonable. Obviously Jordan had Pippen. You know what I'm saying? And both those two are now cemented in as far as greats all time of the NBA are concerned. But I mean, relative to the entire talent of the league, what the Warriors have done right now is just ridiculous. And the only way that was possible is if some money was lost. And I don't know the details of it, but all I'm saying is the theory is still there, because like I said, Melo is a perfect example of somebody who decided to surround himself with talent by taking a huge pay cut, and everybody applauds him, like he was only making 100 million, whatever he was making. Oh, now he's only making 99 million, whatever the fuck he was making. Like, boo-hoo, like you can only afford fucking 5 or 6 Bentleys this year. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? You can only afford like 2 or 3 houses for your baby mamas this year instead of the 7. You were like, you know what I'm saying? It's just stupid. Like, so, I mean, we shouldn't necessarily applaud people, because you're playing yourself. Don't ever play yourself. Shout out to DJ Khaled, but you're playing yourself. You think, you're sitting here and you think, oh well, players should always demand more money. It's always about the money. If you're talented enough, you should be paid properly. To an extent, that's true, but at the same time, man, like don't think they're heroic for taking pay cuts, like, what I'm saying, because that they do that so they say to themselves, all right, I'll make a little bit less money.
Yeah.
This just 1 year, maybe
Right.
3 or 4 years. Oh, boo-hoo! I still have so much money saved up already. I don't even know what to do with it anyway. So, that'll just compensate for these years that I'm making less money. So, so what I'm saying is, if you have these people, if you have these players that, in terms of how much money they should be making, is just this huge, it would take up a huge block of a salary cap of any one team, enough so that you couldn't put a Steph Curry with a Klay Thompson, with an Andre Iguodala, with an Andrew Bogut, with a Draymond Green, a couple of players up, but now you couldn't put a Steph Curry with a Klay Thompson, with a Draymond Green, with an Andre Iguodala, with now a Kevin Durant. You couldn't do it because any number of those players, after having made so many for so many years, or any number of years, any amount of money, for that amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they'd have to say, oh, well, either I gotta be a free agent because you can't match me, or because that's the rule. That's the NBA. And I mean, so or either I have to be a free agent, or I have to stick with my less talented team. And like I also want to say this. It shouldn't be totally hamstringing players and what they're trying to do. Like I said, there's a difference between help and being stacked. That's the major take home that I think we should all really focus on with today's blog. But but like I said, if you play your cards right, you as a player should be able to maybe get one or two, maybe. It's like I said, two more along with you. To me, that is really
you think it
pushing
should be more spread out?
Maybe like one or two. And personally, I think if you think about the money that, in terms of ratings, that the network, the deals that these networks have,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when I think about that industry and its relationship to this league, I think I might even see more sales because what happens is people get so tired of one team winning all the time,
Yeah.
and dominating, that you lose ratings. You know what I'm saying? So it would be cool to see. There was a part of me that really wanted the Raptors to beat the Cavs because I'm tired of, and no knock on LeBron, but he has such an influence on teams that they're always a premier team, to the point where, like, part of me didn't want him to win. A large part of me wanted, in particular, the Raptors. You know what I'm saying? And they're pretty talented in their own right, but what I'm saying is, if you set up a league where you can't have those super teams.
Right.
And I know people are probably going to say to me, "Oh, Jeff, you're just mad that there's a lot of talent in the league, or that teams are trying to win." I mean, but part of it is how you win. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we really can't excuse LeBron's decision to just up and leave Cleveland. And even if you think about it, that last year that he was with Cleveland, Part 1, he just gave up when it was Game 6. I think it was against the Celtics or whoever, but they were getting beat, and you could tell, man, he gave up. Because I think it was already in the works. He said he had probably already talked to the Miami front office. He probably already talked to Spoelstra. He probably talked to.
Think so?
Yeah, man. I don't know the details, obviously, but I'm saying that it's definitely true that he already knew that he was not going to be with the Cavs. So he just gave up, and then he goes to another organization far away from Cleveland. So it's not like the Cleveland fans could exactly migrate as far as going to see him, or it's not like you could kind of say, well, he's only a couple states away, so he's still kind of in the general Midwest area. Nah, because he went all the way down to the south, as southeast as you can get in the United States. Like Miami is the tip of Florida.
Right.
So
We've been there.
Right.
We've been there.
Everybody's been there. But that's what I'm saying. Like he goes far away. Team makes joins a stacked team, wins a ring, and then they won 2 rings, and then he goes back to Cleveland, like because now nobody can say even before the end of this past year, nobody can say, oh, you never won the big one, you already won 2 rings. That's pretty respectable, And now it's just everything's just gravy, and because even if he had never won a title for Cleveland ever, in the absolute least, nobody could say, oh, well, he's never won the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And he's won it twice now, and and even to add insult to injury, even to win it in Cleveland, he had to have an extremely stacked team. And I get it, as far as adapting to the reality of the league, which is that the Warriors, who are already an extremely stacked team, even now without Durant, even before Durant came into the picture on that team, he said to himself, look, that's the only. that's the only way we're gonna beat this team. We're gonna have an equally stacked team, and you know that's what happened. But that just speaks to how screwed up the league is in this sense because and now now you can say we only have 5 or 6 stacked teams. Like, see that's still kind of missing the point. Like, you need your underdogs. You need people who disrupt the legacy. That's what makes college basketball so great in the tournament, man. You see, like, we're big Michigan State fans because our dad went there, but man, Middle Tennessee State, like, for everybody else that wasn't a Michigan State fan, and everybody who wasn't upset about their bracket, because I think like something like 68% of brackets nationwide had Michigan State at least in the Final Four.
It was 72.
Whatever it was, everybody and their brother had I had to win the whole thing.
So did I.
And that's not unreasonable. For obvious reasons.
And that's not biased.
They were number one in the country for several months. Not that we're biased.
No.
But what I'm saying is that's what makes it great. I mean, it's different, but at the same time, you have to give me that the fact that there are upsets, that that's just something that's just like a core quality of college, of a model like college basketball, that people really like, because it's worth it to see South Dakota State and Stephen F. Austin, those kinds of teams, like, go up against Duke and the heavyweights, and because there's a pretty good chance that they might beat them in some crazy fashion. And now, am I saying do the Nets have to beat Cleveland in 4 games in the playoffs? No, but I'm saying you still need the underdogs. You know what I'm saying? You need to be more competitive. You need more, because it gets to the point now where there are entire cities, entire regions, because their teams are so bad and they know it. They don't need, there's no demand as far as broadcasting the games in the very least go. Having the games for them. And this is in every sport. There are teams who they don't make anything on ticket sales because nobody wants to go. Like, I'm a Jets fan too, and I think it's a miracle that the Jets have as many people as they do all the time. I don't know what's wrong. We Jets fans, we just don't want to quit. But
he's Jets fans.
The thing is, I mean, there are teams out there, man. In any sport, they just suck so bad that there's no point in watching. Meanwhile, for the past at least 7 or 8 years in football, the title has gone through New England.
Right.
Like, every year.
That's the same.
Whether the Ravens beat them 1 year, or whether
Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos beat them in some weird fashion, some weird scoring game. The whole point is, when you go into the playoffs and you're trying to win a title, in this particular example, in the NFL, you base your game around New England because they have a monopoly, at least as far as the AFC goes, and it's the same thing with the 2 conferences in the NBA. This year more than ever, if it wasn't already ridiculous, teams that are trying to seriously win a ring, and much less just get to the finals through the Western Conference, they got to plan for the Warriors more than any team. And the East is even worse because now you got to plan for. Obviously, you still got to plan for Cleveland. That's your number one. But now you got to worry about. I'm sorry. You got to worry about Chicago to an extent. You got to worry about. You got to worry about the Knicks too. That's 3 teams that you kind of got to worry about. I mean, personally, I think Rose is a total liability, and the fact that they got him, because it's a contract deal. They're seeing where it goes because.
Well, he is from New York City.
I don't care, because the way Knicks fans thinking is that we want to go see Derrick Rose play. There's automatically, just because of that name, there's automatically more of a demand to go to that game, and it's just a ploy to sell tickets because I'm telling you, by like late November, he's gonna be injured. He's gonna be done. Like mid
I wouldn't be
season,
surprised by that, obviously, because he's been known throughout his career as being a injury-prone player, and I don't really recall the last time he had a full season. Has he ever had a full season? Do you know?
Yeah, and he
I'd
has.
have to look. I'd have to look it up. I don't recall. But
I was in middle school, I think.
I feel like that every year you hear something about Derrick Rose being out with this injury or this injury, and it's just kind of sad. But
I wouldn't pay for that.
but I think I really see your point in all of what you've just said, and I really see your point. I think the NBA could do what you're saying. I just think it's going to take time, especially with the amount of money that flows in and the amount of money that these guys get anyway. I mean, you even look at some player like, I'll give you an example like Dion Waiters. Dion Waiters is like the 9th or 10th man off the bench for Oklahoma City last year, and he was making $2.3 million. And most people in life, not just in athletes, can probably last off of $2.3 million. And so even with that, and then you look at these guys like LeBron, who's making a crap load of money off of millions upon millions of dollars. And so I just think it's going to take time for players' salary to reduce. I think it will reduce, honestly, in the next 10, 15 years. And I think that the owners of the NBA and the commissioner and the players need to come to some sort of an agreement to allow more star players to stay on more teams to expand it. Because like you were saying how there's a bunch of different teams that suck and just are not fun. Like I can give you a good example, the Charlotte Hornets. They're obviously half decent, but for most of their existence as the Bobcats, they were terrible.
Even
they just didn't. They couldn't. No. You couldn't fill the stands there. It was that bad.
Even like the Nets, dude. The Nets are pathetic.
And I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, and let me tell you, it's really tough watching this team. Like last year, I barely watched them. They were that bad to watch. And the only time they really ever sold out or had a lot of people is when LeBron, Curry, or any of the big superstars came to play. Other than that, they couldn't fill the stands. They had more fans at a Nets-Sixers game in Brooklyn. They had more Sixers fans at that game than Nets fans. Can you believe that?
Does it make more sense to have a business model based on an occasional sellout or more of a chance for more consistent sellouts because your team is actually decent? Like your team has a chance of, I don't know, maybe making it to like the second round of the playoffs. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like rally the troops. As far as your fan base is concerned, right? And, because it's bad. And Adam Silver really needs to roll up his sleeves as far as this goes. But it's really bad when teams only sell out now when Curry or LeBron come to town.
Right.
Like it's ridiculous. And anyway, those teams and those players shit on the other those teams, those home teams. So badly that people bail in the middle of the game anyway. Like, it's already, 70, you already scored like 80 points. It's in the third quarter. Like,
it's not. Well, just one more question I want to ask you before we end this part of the blog. And the question, I think, this is a question that probably everybody loves answering nowadays. Are the Warriors now the ultimate favorites to win the title this year now that they have Durant?
I mean, yes and no, because, like I said, this is exactly the same model that LeBron, Wade, and Bosh bought into. It's, the whole idea is probability.
You think it's worse?
It is worse. Yeah. But basically, it's the same thing, They stay together for what? 3 or 4 years? They win at the absolute worst one title. Let's say some fluke crazy thing happens. And, they lose to, like, the Spurs or something in some crazy 7-game series. Or even, even what happened with the Cavs, like that. They blew it just like the Thunder blew it with them. So something like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly one of the big guys gets injured, but, even if Curry goes down, you still got Durant. Even if Durant goes down, you still got Curry. Like... And even if both those guys goes down, you still have a pretty freaking good team.
Yeah.
You got Draymond, Iguodala.
It's going to be tough with
Thompson,
Draymond.
Harrison Barnes. Who I'm pretty sure that they ended up matching whatever he wanted. But in the end,
Who, Harrison Barnes?
Did I say Draymond Green?
You said Draymond, yeah.
Draymond and
Did you say Harrison Barnes?
and Sean Livingston. What?
Harrison Barnes
Harrison
left.
Barnes. Yeah.
He
He
left.
left.
Yeah,
All
he
right, well,
left.
anyway, you got Thompson, you got Draymond Green, and
And they have some
Sean
good guys off the
Livingston.
bench, you have to admit.
I mean, you know, the whole point is like they're really not going to need. They're not really going to need a bench.
Now, and this is a little bit more of an interesting question, and this is definitely the last question. If, let's per se, the Warriors can't get it done, they can't win a title in the entire time that they have Durant, Curry, and
Well, how many years you talk? How many years you give
okay,
them?
well, I mean, Durant signed a 2-year deal with the Warriors for $50
Okay.
million. Let's say in that 2-year span they don't win a title. Do you the question is then, do you consider their experiment, I guess you want to call it an experiment, do you consider that a massive failure?
I'd say it's pretty disappointing though in the first years, but you gotta think of it, man. Like once again, that Heat team only won 2 out of 4. Granted, they went to the finals every year of those 4 years,
Right.
which is ridiculous
That's
as it is. But you know, so who's not to say he loses the first 2 and they win the next 2? It'd be the same exact
Mhm.
thing. See, the thing is, he only needs to really, really win once, just so people can never say, you know, especially when it comes to voting him into the Hall of Fame or not. Oh, well, you know, he was a great player, but he didn't win a ring. Well, you know, he did win a ring, right? You know, even if he ends up staying and they end up establishing a total dynasty, a total empire, in Oakland, you know, and because if he wins like, you know, 3 or 4 rings there's no question that, you know, as far as that section of his resume goes, the way you know, the people that vote people in the Hall of Fame in, there's no way they're gonna, you know, they're gonna really question that, because 3 or 4 rings, like, you know, I mean, a great like Isaiah Thomas only has 2. So as far as that goes, you know, if he has 3 or 4, they're not gonna bug about that. So, you know, like I said, the biggest problem is that he'll get the monkey off his back, even if he wins even if he won one ring, just one, because then people will say, oh, we never won the big one. You know, it happens all the time in sports. You know, just, you know, any sport you go, like, you know,
Yeah, I got you.
A-Rod, for example, baseball is incredibly unclutch, like stupid unclutch.
He really hates A-Rod.
He had one good year. He had one good year, 2009. And now, you know, now everyone says, oh, well, you know, now I won the big one. You can't say I never didn't win the big one. But, you know, does that, you know, and unfortunately that's how people think, because, you know, does that make you a great player? Like, no, I mean, you were a really great player before you came to the Yankees, obviously. But, you know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to roast A-Rod too hard, but I do just, you know, as a player, I do despise him.
He has an A-Royd shirt. That's how much he despises A-Rod. That's pretty funny. But like, I just, the only other question I have to ask, and this is a very quick question, and I want to hear your quick explanation as to why. Out of your opinion, besides the Cavs, is there any team that you think is good enough to make it to the finals and play and beat the Golden State Warriors? Do you think that there's a team out there?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, once again, look at this. Look at the example of the stacked team in Miami. You know, they lost to a Mavericks team, who I didn't really think was that good, but they ended up performing very well in the last 3 or 4 games of the finals. You know, and then they lost to a very good Spurs team. That team actually did impress me a lot. But, you know, the whole thing is, you know, like I said,
they did beat him the year before.
Any team could either beat him in the finals. Some crazy weird stuff could happen
right
in the playoffs before the finals.
Wait and see. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully in the future that my brother can come on here and talk about a few things, some more basketball, other sports, and you know, We'll see you guys soon with my brother Jeff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Just remember, guys, help versus being a stack team. That's it. Help versus being a stack team.
So that is the end of today's video blog. Thank you guys very much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed that talk with my brother. I'm going to hope to get him on a few more shows in the future. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to a lot of sports, but that conversation that me and my brother just had was very long, and so I apologize if you were looking to get into a few more other sports. But thank you guys again so much for watching this video. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Make sure to tell all of your friends about it. And once again, you can follow my social media. I'm going to put it in the description below. And I'm hoping that soon, very soon next week, I will begin my third blog. So thank you guys once again, and I will see you guys in the next one.